Hey, I'm Jonathan, otherwise known as Do Better Jonathan.
Hey, I'm Justin, a therapist that spent over a decade helping couples.
Welcome to Relationships, a Do Better podcast. This podcast explores conversations every couple should be having and how we can do better as partners. Today, we are talking about what gets in the way in relationships and addressing the balance of give and take within relationships. We are also talking about fairness with Carla Eenberg, a marriage and family therapist who practices in Kansas City, Missouri, about guiding couples through these relational ethics. Thank you, Carla, for joining us.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
So, to start off with, Carla, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what led you to be a therapist?
I have always wanted to help people, even when I was a little kid. And I was afraid to do it until I hit 40 and decided that I was going back to school for this. Yeah, just navigating relationships, believing in every part of me that we are wired for connection, helping people find better connections is what led me to marriage and family therapy. And yeah, I was really glad that I got the education and the license.
That's really, really cool. And I mean, with your experience, because you've been practicing for about 15 years?
13 or 14. I started in 2012.
I mean, so you're a veteran. Goodness gracious. You have seen some stuff. And I am curious. I think what we've kind of talked about before in relationships, and so much of what John and I are really hoping to be able to kind of focus on is just overall the mental load that I know that a lot of women that they feel, that they carry, that they have in their relationships. And I think that that's kind of the purpose of this podcast, is to be able to speak to that. But we wanted to be able to see what is your experience? What have you really kind of seen in these interactions and with conflicts that couples, what do they usually have conflicts over?
There are many things that couples usually have conflicts over, but today I was hoping to talk about fairness. And it's an element of many of the conflicts that come up. When I say fairness, mental load is one of the aspects. So talking about mental load, we are going into the holidays right now. And whether it's going to visit family or planning your own holiday at home, invariably one of the parents, if you have children, or even one of the members of the couple, tends to have more of the planning ahead or packaging things up, or remembering that, we're going to have to find somebody to watch the dogs, or we're going to have to make sure that we leave some water running because it's winter, or if it's a summer holiday, we need to make sure that we have somebody coming to check on the house in case the air conditioner kicks off. Whatever, planning ahead means for you, there tends to be one member of the couple that does more of that planning than the other. And in heterosexual relationships, that a lot of times falls on the woman, but not necessarily. It's very relative as far as how the couple functions. And it's really hard to explain to the member of the couple who's not worried about that, what that means. That the planner a header, I'm the planner a header in my world. I would say, okay, well, we're going to be traveling during a holiday weekend. What are we going to eat? Because there will be no restaurants open. We can't count on there being restaurants open on the holiday. And my partner would say, oh, we just eat at a Chinese place. And I'm like, yeah, in the United States, the Chinese also celebrate Thanksgiving. They might not be open. I get going to a Chinese place for dinner for Christmas because, okay, that's a possibility. But we really need to think ahead, or we're going to be traveling over a holiday. We should book ahead to make sure we have a place to stay. Are we taking the dogs? I have dogs. So that's what I can say. But these things, how much I would like to do the laundry before we leave. Is all of your laundry in the laundry basket? And so, sorry, I'm throwing my husband under the bus, and I don't mean to do that. considering that and being able to explain that to your partner. And then, I'll say this as the personal planner or header, giving him an opportunity to even know what I'm thinking about.
Mm.
Because if he knew, he could manage this. These are just things that aren't on his radar because he doesn't have to. Or maybe they are, and I'm not giving him credit. And that's where fairness comes in on that. How much of the anxiety is driving planning ahead? Because that's what drives planning ahead. And how much can we trust our partner to meet us there? I can tell you confidently, when I've let him plan a trip, we made it home safely and we always ate, and there were not big, terrible things that happened. So a lot of it's also trusting your partner and having that fairness balance of I might not know ahead of time, but it doesn't mean it will be okay. I launched into holidays, but I think that's one aspect, especially when we're talking about mental load.
I think that, obviously the holidays is a really, really common place. And probably when people are going to be listening to this, it'll either be pre or post holiday of just happening, and they'll still have that wonderful cortisol pumping through their veins of being able to have Aunt Susie that had too much sauce or whatever it is that happened. But what was interesting, and I think what I'm really kind of curious about, is helping couples with this idea of fairness. And there was one thing that you said that I think that I'd want you to be able to kind of unpack a little bit more for us, where it's having the partner actually get it, having the partner actually hear it. And I think that's where we see a lot of people really struggle, is how do we get the partner to actually really hear it?
It's funny. I just watched a reel of someone playing devil's advocate where a woman goes to the man and says, "I'm going to help you." And he's like, "Why aren't we just doing this together?" And basically it's a big, long reel. But the point is, why aren't we doing this together?
Yeah.
When I'm talking about anxiety, some of that is just, I don't want the discomfort of having to have the conversation or push for what I'm worried. I don't even know what I'm worried about. I just know I want to take care of it, and I don't want to have a fight about it. So I'm just going to do it all.
Yeah.
And so it's believing that you can get through that discomfort of telling your partner, "I need you to plan this, and these are the things I need you to think about." And then believing that they will.
I think, okay, so I love that. And there's one word that I was hearing you say before that I think that you're really highlighting, where it feels like this is just about trust, and I mean on both sides of the equation, right? Where it's I trust you to be able to catch me. I trust you to be able to be there. I trust you to hear me, but also maybe, and you can let me know if I'm close or not. I trust what you're saying is true and authentic. I trust that your hurt is real.
And I think that's where fairness comes in, is that we want to believe that the things that we're afraid of, the bad things that could happen that we're trying to protect against, we want to believe that we can plan around it. And our partner just wants to believe that we believe in them, that we can do this together. The fairness aspect of that is hearing your partner's anxiety, and for the partner who wants to plan everything. And then the vice versa of it is hearing that your partner wants you to believe in them.
So a lot of times I see people kind of go through a cycle of where the partner that maybe is taking on the mental load or playing says, "Hey, I need more from you. I need help." And so they address this with their partner, and their partner's like, "Okay, I see that you need me, and I'm going to do better. I'm going to step up." But then they step up for a week or two, or maybe it's just the playing the holidays. They do that one activity, and then they're like, okay, they're not complaining anymore. They don't need help anymore. Then they go back into their own, what they were doing. And it's just a reoccurring cycle. Do you see, you're nodding your heads. I assume you see that often.
And then the partner that steps up and does it feels like they need a reward. Look what I did. I did the thing. And the other partner's like, yes, every bloody day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the difficulty there is once the person steps up and does those things, then having them understand this is every day. This isn't just for a holiday. This isn't just for vacation. This is for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have to think ahead for the whole day to make sure that the kids have a change of clothes in their bag because they might mess themselves at school. I need to make sure that they have a snack for the ride home or they're going to be a mess when they get here. We need to think about all of that.
Because I'm hearing like, John, like this pattern, this cycle that happens. And how do you break through that? I mean, what is like that magic sauce that, or is there such a thing as a magic sauce to be able to break like this infuriating pattern from continuing? For me, like what I've really found, for people and like how to be able to actually like break this cycle from being able to happen again and again and again. I think that I've worked with a lot of people on just this idea of rituals and routines. John Gottman, which Carla and I are a really big fan of, like I understand so much of his work. He's a relationship like researcher and counselor. But so much of like connection, I think that we have this idea that like connection just like magically happens. That this feeling of closeness, like by gosh, with Hollywood, my wife, she just gets lost in her eyes and in my eyes and boom, we're connected. So goodness, do I wish that was true, but it's not, which I find offensive, but that's fine. Like what connection is really like built off of are like, do our rituals and routines actually reinforce connection? So my wife, and maybe this was actually more born out of like my frugality, she stated, our vacuum cleaner is atrocious. It is not picking up the dog hair. And I think that we need to be able to get like a brand new vacuum cleaner. And so my little pocket just tightened up a little bit. And I'm like, ugh. I think that maybe we actually need to be able to just like vacuum more. And that's one of my wife's like least favorite activities. So every single Saturday, I go through, and that is kind of a part of my routine and ritual in the morning, is that I go and I vacuum our rug and I vacuum kind of the rest of kind of the common areas that we have. Now, it is like, I think that it's, again, like those rituals and routines that like really help to be able to form and really help to be able to shape us. But I want to be able to pair that up with like what I often talk about with people. And Carla, you can be able to add on to this. Like one of my favorite words that I really want to be able to live by is, I want to be just intentional with how I show up, with how I love, with how I care for the other people, with how I am with my kids, with how I am with my clients, with how I am with my friends. I want to be intentional. It is so damn easy for us to just get stuck on autopilot, where I just blink and I do the regular every single day. And maybe I have my phone integrated in it where I get sucked in.
Or you get tired of the noise and you go sit in the bathroom and pretend like you're having a long bathroom session when really you're scrolling on your phone.
Get out of our house. Okay. Well, but okay. So you're talking about like maybe like our phone can be used for avoidance. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah.
Well, tell us more.
Well, I mean, to entertain yourself and check out, to just disassociate and scroll instead of being intentional and doing the hard things every day. And I think one of the points I wanted to make when I'm talking about fairness is when we're being intentional, we can have a tendency to look at our partner and be like, how intentional are you being? I caught you looking at your phone. I caught you stepping out on the back porch when you thought that I was busy with the kids and focused and you didn't think I was watching. Right? So that's that fairness and comparison that keeps coming up for me is, so There's a study that came out a while ago saying they interviewed a whole bunch of people about how they drive. And every single person was like, I am above average. I'm an above average. And we drive. We know that most of the cars on the road are not above average drivers. Right? So that's part of that comparison, is that we're comparing how I feel right now when I'm pissed at you and I see that you're not doing something. I'm comparing that to how I feel when I know I just made dinner and I'm feeding the kids.
Well, I love what you're kind of pointing out, where it's like I'm also viewing my partner, but also through maybe not like the clearest lens, but how to see myself and how I actually am.
Right. And when we can consider that there are moments our partner is looking at us and saying, I can't trust you either to think of me and my needs. You're thinking of yourself first too. And when we can accept that and be like, okay, that might actually be true, that there are times that I think about myself first. And that's not what I want to be if I'm going to be an intentional partner, if I'm going to be ethical in my relationship. So considering, and when we're making those comparisons, because, I'm a big fan of Brene Brown too. And one of the points that she makes repeatedly is that marriage is not a 50-50 engagement. We don't get to go, that's my 50%. I'm going to go over here. And there are going to be times when we're going to be, like as Brene Brown very eloquently says very often, I might come home and say to, she'll say, I'll come home and say to my husband, I got 30% today. And he's like, that's it. I can kick in 70 or whatever. And I think that's a lovely conversation to have. It's not anything that's ever fit into my life. But one of the things that I think is really helpful for couples is to consider the possible difficulties that our partner might be having too. And that's where I brought up neurodivergence. And neurodivergence is just a way of saying those things that in our DSM that we use for diagnosis and everything are referred to as disorders are a difference in someone else's brain that doesn't match with ours. So some of the things that are called neurodivergence are autism or sensory processing disorders, or ADHD, or Tourette's, or bipolar, OCD. These are, when we refer to it as neurodivergence, we're talking about it without putting the label on it of it being a disorder. It's a way that my partner's brain works differently than mine. And that's just one aspect. There's also elements that our partners might be having of pain in their bodies, backaches or headaches or bowel disorders, or these things can be terribly disabling and make us have a tendency to check out. It's a lot easier to look at our partner when we're hurting and be like, you're not considering this. And it's important, if we're trying to do better, to consider what's happening for our partner too. And if our partner says, I'm in pain, to believe them.
So how do you balance fairness in those situations? Because it's like, I understand that they may not see the same way I do, or they're going through pain, but also I feel like I'm doing 75% every single day and I never get a break from that 75%. Is that just something you have to get over? Or like, I can understand like seeing their pain, but at the same time, I'm overwhelmed because I'm carrying the majority of that load because of that. Is that it just is what it is? Or like, how do you work through that?
Let's say your partner has ADHD. It might mean deciding what chores are deal breakers for you. This chore has to be done the way that I do it. I need to know that it's done every day. And so maybe you take that chore on as your daily. And it might mean lowering your expectations from what would be perfect to what's acceptable. It's maybe if you're working with someone who has ADHD, having them do something that they have to do every single day isn't fair to them because their mind doesn't work that way. So the responsibilities that fall on them might be things that take a little bit longer, but they have a better focus once they get into them to actually finish them. It also means being appreciative if you have a partner with ADHD when they do side quests that aren't part of the, okay, you know what? Our goal was to find the dining room table, and I see that you did all these side quests, and now all the trim's up. Okay, yay.
So I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, just kind of work with them, be understanding. And kind of on the flip side of that, a lot of my comments on my videos where I post about cleaning tips, cleaning strategies, I get a lot of comments saying, this doesn't work with me because I'm ADHD or I'm neurodivergent. This doesn't work with me. Do you have any tips for people with ADHD or neurodivergent of maybe methods or steps they can take to maybe for cleaning or taking care of their house, like things like that may be difficult for them?
So lists are really helpful, but the deal with lists is that they have to be living. It can't just be, I make a list and then I beat myself up for what I didn't do on the list. So one way of making lists that can be helpful with neurodivergence is to put it on a calendar instead of a list. So like on Monday, I get a notification that says, this is the day that I
like you wash the bed sheets on Mondays.
This is the day that I wash the sheets. So on Monday, the alarm goes off. Part of that agreement that you have to make with yourself is when the alarm goes off, I strip the beds and put it in the washing machine. And it might mean setting a timer on your phone, or actually, from what I understand, the mechanical timers, the old-fashioned ones that you turn past 10 and then go back. Those are really helpful because they make a ticking sound that makes you kind of remember that there's a timer going. So that it works in your environment. But like to set a timer that goes off that says change the clothes to the dryer. And when I talk about lowering expectations, if you get those clothes in the dryer, you might have won. That might be awesome. You've scaled the mountain. And maybe it's not lowering expectations, but changing them to something that's actually achievable. So yeah, maybe I have to make the bed when I get home right before I go to bed, but the sheets got washed.
You're hitting on a word that I absolutely love, where it is like expectations. And it seems like that is kind of the main thing that it sounds like, you're really pushing for people and frankly, like in relationships to be able to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And this could be in, goodness gracious, a whole host of things. And so if it is, yes, like the workload around the house, like what are my expectations? And when my expectations aren't met, that's where I think often with people, like they go through a form of grief, and if we go through like pop culture, pop psychology,
I'd use a different word there than grief, and I would say betrayal.
Interesting. Tell us more.
Well, if you have a set of expectations, even if you've never told anyone, and you're holding this set of expectations of this is what it looks like to be in a happy relationship, and your partner's not meeting you there, it feels like betrayal. How can I trust you with my heart if you can't do the laundry?
Well, I think that you're hitting on something important as well, where it's like, what message is that telling me? Like what, with you not doing the laundry, does this mean, do you value me? Do you respect me? Do you care about me?
Or are you taking me for granted? Did I become your parent?
I find it interesting too, because I get a lot of comments from both parties of people who have the expectations. I also get a lot of comments from people who can never seem to meet those expectations. And so going from that perspective, I get a lot of people commenting that they always have too high of expectations, or they clean the bathroom and it's never done the right way. And it doesn't matter if they looked up on YouTube how to do it. It doesn't matter if they asked how to do it and they do it the same way. It feels like they can never do it appropriately. So when you feel like your partner has too high of expectations, or it's just what you do is never good enough, I always say, just communicate, just talk about it. But like, really, what actionable steps can you take to kind of meet in the middle there?
And I think that I'm going to go way back to parenting. A lot of times we give shorthand direction or suggestions or demands. I just go clean the kitchen. And if you think about a little kid being told, just go clean your room, they walk into their room and they're like, Okay, I'm going to organize my stuffed animals on my bed because that'll be cleaner. Because they don't know that mom's going in with the expectation that the floor be completely clear of things and that all of the clothes are in the hamper and that they've dusted the top of the shelf and that they've made the bed. And you know what I mean? If we walk in without having said, these are the things that I want to see, this is what I'm measuring, we've sort of set the person that is going in to do the cleaning up for failure. Because even though clean the kitchen sounds like a very clear direction, if I went in to clean the kitchen, my expectations might be very different than either of yours. You know, somebody said the other day, my partner went in and remembered to wipe down the counter after they washed dishes. And then I go over to make coffee and there's crumbs around and under the coffee pot. How do you miss that part of the counter? That's also counter. And their partner is like, I never do anything well enough for you.
Mm-hmm.
And the partner was looking for the water around the dishes and had cleared all that up. It didn't occur to them that there were crumbs on another part of the counter. So it's got to be an ongoing conversation. And I think it's important that I'm going to go back to expectations, to set the expectations and to communicate them. And then to consider the change that has happened that the person tried. Having sort of an open heart about it.
I think taking that to a real experience, it kind of reminded me of an experience that my wife and I had where she wanted me to clean the bathroom. And so I wiped down the counters, cleaned the toilet, did what I thought was a good job. And then she got so mad because on the sink, like silver part, there was splatter there. I apparently didn't wipe off the chrome part. And she is like, you didn't clean the bathroom. Like, I asked you to clean the bathroom. You didn't clean it. And I'm like, I did clean it. I tried. I'm sorry that I missed one spot. What's the big deal? Like, I got so mad. And then, you're kind of talking about like the parenting, like setting expectations. It's kind of a tough tough scenario because she's like, I don't want to be your mom. I don't want to have to tell you how to clean. You should just know how to clean. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, I should probably know that you should clean the chrome, but to me, yeah.
You didn't grow up in her house. So you don't know what she thinks a clean bathroom is. And I think that's a great example because polishing the chrome isn't necessarily a part of a clean bathroom in absolutely everybody's house. So it's that learning curve. And now I'll bet you remember to polish the chrome if you decide you're going to wipe down the bathroom.
Exactly. That's my thing is like, if you're going to make a mistake, say, okay, I messed up and don't make the mistake twice. And then both parties should be happy in theory.
Yeah. Some of us can make new mistakes every time.
I mean, what I'm hearing from you, John, and maybe again, kind of like the lesson for the other partner who's learning and growing, and maybe I want this to be more of a question. How did you, I'm kind of curious, like, how was that for you? Like when she stated, you didn't even clean this bathroom, and how did you persevere? Like, how did you push through that? Like, what did you tell yourself, I guess, or what did you guys do to be able to work through that?
Yeah. In hindsight, I want to say I was just like, yeah, I messed up. I didn't think of that. I'll do it next time. In hindsight, that's the ideal situation. That's not how I know it.
In the real world.
Yeah, real world, I got very defensive and was like, I wiped down the counters, I cleaned the toilet, I pretty much cleaned the bathroom. It doesn't matter if there's some toothbrush specks on the chrome. It doesn't matter. And she's frustrated. She's like, you didn't put any effort in. You didn't try. You did this really quickly. You didn't do it thoroughly. Like, why do I even have you bother cleaning this? Like, I guess I'll just do it next time type thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and to me, I'm like, you are blowing up over nothing. And to her, I'm not putting in the time and effort that she would have. And so, yeah, we definitely had different expectations there. Yeah, I think it's coming together of, okay, in the moment, we're heated. We were upset about it, but I know that she was appreciative that I cleaned the bathroom and she didn't have to do it. And so I know that. And so even so the moment she was upset, but me personally, like you said, I make sure to polish the chrome every single time. And it was the same thing with the shower. I used to not clean the shower when I clean the bathroom. It would just do the bathroom part. And now I always clean the shower.
Why do you have to clean
yeah. Yeah, exactly.
clean the shower?
I know.
Kind of hearing from you, I'm sorry to interrupt, John, like what kind of the one part, and I don't know if Carla, you were picking up on this, but it was almost like the relational currency that they had was already built up so much in the relationship where like you had this little misunderstanding, or you guys had like this discussion, but like we have built enough trust, we've built enough of like attachment and relationship and closeness that I can assume the best about her. I can be able to assume that like she does appreciate me. I can assume and I can believe that she wants to be helpful, like why she's telling me this. It isn't so much to berate me, to put me down, to make me feel silly, dumb, stupid, bad, ugly, whatever it is. She wants to be helpful. And it sounds like, it wasn't so much about that moment, but it was so much about like the years and years and years they've been together since high school that you guys have had together with each other, that currency that you built up in the relationship.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. Is I like in the moment, of course, we get heated and defensive and argue, but I feel like I'm really good, or both of us are good about taking a step back later, cooling down, and thinking about from each other's perspective. Mm-hmm. And so, whenever I'm upset, we get in a fight, I try to think about that. It's like, okay, if I try to think about from her perspective, what do I see? And kind of understand where she's coming from. And I think that really helps. But I understand too that, it feels like sometimes it's, I mopped the floor. Oh, I used the wrong cleaner. Oh, I cleaned the bathroom. The chrome wasn't polished. Oh, I cleaned the bathroom. I polished the chrome, but now I didn't clean the shower. And now it feels like it's something every single time.
And that is learning.
Yeah. Which I recognize that she grew up in a house that was very clean, very tidy, and I did not. And I recognize that I have something to learn. But I think it encourages me to keep going and keep learning, because if I do something well, or I do something, like, she does appreciate me and recognizes that. And I know, like, I don't deserve a prize or anything for doing it the right way, but she acknowledges me and gives me that recognition. And so I think that's also important to talk about, because I a lot of times we kind of talk about, like, just for doing a basic cleaning job, you don't deserve a prize or recognition or a thanks. But at the same time, it's nice to have that as well, mixed in with the, hey, this is how you can do better. And that kind of equals things out for us.
I think you said another really important thing when you were telling the story, is that you said, she mentioned the splatter, and you said, I got defensive. And that's an important thing to recognize, is that we do have a tendency to be like, and then to take that breath and that moment and be like, this is something I can learn from. I actually want to please you. And so I really appreciated that you said that, and that acknowledgement that I would say the more that we say thank you for something, the more likely we are to get more of it. So it's not like we're going to have a parade for someone for cleaning the bathroom.
Yes.
But at the same time, an acknowledgement that you put in effort and you did a thing that took something off my plate really makes a difference. We have a tendency, when we say thank you, we have a tendency for the person gets the thank you. They feel an urge and a desire to do more.
How does a couple, because now it feels like we're talking about defensiveness, how do we even work through defensiveness? Like what does that look like for you, Carla, and like even in the therapy room?
I'm going to go Gottman and say, one of the things that really helps with addressing defensiveness in the first place is to use complaint rather than criticism. So it's two subtly different words. So one of the ways that I describe criticism is labeling your partner. So to say, well, rather than you did it, I'm going to criticize your wife. I'm sorry. Not criticize. I'm going to complain about your wife for a moment. I don't need to. I ask for forgiveness ahead of time. instead of saying you didn't even clean the bathroom, you didn't put in any effort, which is, you can hear the underlying label of you're lazy. So that's why I call criticism labeling. Saying, I walk in and I see all of these toothpaste marks on the chrome. It makes me feel like you're not really putting in effort, and I'm super disappointed because these are the things that I'm looking for in a clean bathroom. I think you can see where that might feel a little less like you just called me a name to you were specific about what disappointed you. You made a complaint, and I can address that. I can recognize that that's something you were looking for. And I think that goes a long way to helping with defensiveness. I also think it's important that every single one of us be aware that we get defensive. I was driving the other day and my husband was in the passenger seat, and I was paying attention to many things, but not the pothole that I ended up hitting. He was like, it was like you drove right into that, honey. And I said, well, cars at light, and I missed the pothole. It got me. I got defensive. I mean, it happens to all of us.
Carla, one thing that you said, which I thought was really cool, is it was almost talking about kind of both sides of like this conversation where, one side you're really kind of pointing out like, how do I say this in a way that they can actually be able to catch it? How do I say this in a way that they can hear it? My wants, my needs, my feelings, but also, you're really kind of pointing to like how the other person can really catch and to be able to hear it without kind of becoming defensive. And I guess that's where I wanted to be able to hear maybe a little bit more.
But I think when we're talking about relationships, we really need to consider both sides. Yes, it can be hard to bring up difficult things for our partners, complaints that we have that we would like to be different. And we need to be aware that when our partners bring those things up for us, we also might not receive it as graciously as we believe that we're capable of. And to hold ourselves to the standard of hearing what the person's actually asking for or doing our best to, rather than taking it personally, and actively practicing making complaints rather than labeling or criticism of behaviors or activities that our partner is doing. I like to make sure that I'm putting the responsibility, this is back to fairness again, but when it comes to solving problems in a relationship, 9 times out of 10, women are the ones who are going to be willing to read a self-help book or go to the podcast or any of those things. It's more likely than not going to be a woman. I don't know why, but it is. And I don't want to put all of the responsibility for making a relationship work on one party. A great man once said, you only get half in any relationship. Half the credit? Okay, I know. I earlier said it's not 50-50. I'm also going to say, if the relationship's working, you don't get more than half credit for it working. And if it's failing, you don't get more than half blame for it failing. We're going to have to both put in order to keep a relationship going.
So you were going back to the fairness aspect a little bit in there, talking about like, both have to put in this effort. So a lot of times parties feel like they are putting in maybe this equal effort, where one party feels like it's not equal. And so without keeping a scoreboard, so earlier you were talking about, one person's on their phone while the other person's with the kids, or the person's on their phone at dinner. And you're over here thinking like, okay, I'm taking care of the kids. I'm being active at dinner. You're just on your phone. You're just on your phone. Like, I'm always the one doing this. And in your mind, it's like, I'm always the one doing this. And you are always just doing leisure items on your phone. And then in your mind, you're the one doing more. But on the flip side, they're like, okay, I worked all day. I'm doing something else. And in their mind, it's very equal. And then as the original person was like, hey, things are unbalanced. I feel like I'm overwhelmed. I'm doing it all. Or get off your phone. There's like this issue that they feel have two different beliefs of the equality. But also at the same time, I've always heard like, don't keep a scoreboard, like don't say, oh, I do this, you do that, you do this, and like keep a little scoreboard. So how do you navigate finding that balance without actually tracking the balance?
I think it's being willing to put in the intentional effort. No, it sounds too much, but always. Because when you're at work, if you're putting in minimal effort and you're going in the bathroom to hide and scroll on your phone, it's going to come back on you at work, right? And so you're giving it your all at work. I'm sorry, you got to give it your all at home too. Because when you are there, you're a party, you're in it. And you can't just go out with your friends because then I'm not at home and I don't have to put in the effort because I'm putting in the effort with my friends. The grass grows where you water it is a important idea when it comes to relationships. And if you're not engaged and not paying attention to what's happening, you're not watering the grass.
So what I'm hearing you say, which I really like, is it's simply, and Carla, you can help me if I'm close or if I'm wrong. It's this belief that, or frankly, kind of this question of like, am I doing the best that I can today? Am I doing the very best that I can? And it's not only with like what the responsibilities around the house. I'm also kind of integrating it with like, am I doing the best that I can with like articulating my wants, my needs, my feelings? Am I doing the very best that I can with assuming the very best about my partner? Am I doing the very best as like, am I getting closer to that spouse that I hope to be, that I want to be, or that parent that I hope to be and want to be? And so, I mean, your challenge is, it sounds like, it's easy to be able to look at the partner and say, you, but I'm hearing your challenge be about me and my growth and where can I challenge me?
Even in the complaint of, or the issue of, I'm here doing all of this stuff and you're on your phone. You're always on your phone. You're not engaging. You're always checking out when it comes to time with the kids. That's labeling. We really need to be specific. I need you to put your phone down. Would you please engage with the kids? I need you to be part of this here. And I know that your work is important and I know that you need time to yourself. And, if you have the luxury of not having kids, you might get a little bit more of that. And there's a chance that your partner's going to want a little connection in the evening too, even if you don't have kids. And yes, you've been at work all day and I've been at home all day, maybe. And it would mean a lot to me if you would put your phone down or leave your phone in a drawer or put it on the charger while we're eating dinner. Because I want to see your eyes. I want to make eye contact with you. And so, yes, it's a little more vulnerable to make that complaint as opposed to, there you are, you're on your damn phone again. What the hell? You're more likely to get what you want by asking for what you want instead of criticizing the person for not doing something that you haven't said. This is what I'm asking you to do. And maybe you do feel like a broken record.
One thing that I kind of believe, which I hear you saying is, we are always articulating our needs. And so when we're communicating with one another, we are always articulating a need. Like it's just, can we actually hear it from one another? And so what I'm thinking of, and kind of my example is that like prior to having kids, my wife and I, we have a dog, and he was there, and I sit and I pet and I love and I give him all the affection one can be able to muster. And like when he wiggles away, I force my love on him. Accept this. But what my wife, like what she said, and this was 5+ years ago, she stated, like some days I wish I was our dog. And she said it in such like a very jovial, fun kind of manner. And it sat with me, and I thought about it and I chewed on it, and I was like, what is that need? Like, if I believe that like we're always articulating a need, what is like that need that's actually underneath? And that need is I want affection. I want touch. I'm yearning for that from you.
And she wants to see you light up when you just walk in the room, when she just walks in the room.
Yeah.
Because that's what you were describing from this puppy.
We kind of came across like that situation months later where, my wife, she stated kind of a similar comment. And I said, I hear that I need to be more affectionate. Yeah. It sounds like I need to be able to really show you love more. And it definitely took my wife kind of by surprise, where she's like, yeah, I would love that. But I think kind of what you're saying, which I wanted to be able to highlight, is, no matter what my partner says, there is a need that's underneath it. Can I actually hear that need? And so when there are dirty dishes and I say, there's dishes in the sink, I see, what is like the need that's underneath? When I see splatters of toothpaste all over the chrome, that horrific sin in the bathroom, and she gripes at me and yells at me, like, what is like that need that's underneath, and can I speak to that need? Because again, it's probably not so much about like the actual polishing the chrome, but it is maybe again like about this message. It's about this need. And I don't know if it would be like, I want you to feel considered. I don't know if that's it.
Or I want to feel, I want to live in a place that looks up to a certain standard. And I don't want to be the only person taking it there. It's not a silly thing to ask for. It's the importance is to be able to communicate with each other what it is that we need and to listen, as you said, even what was the term, we can't not communicate. Mm-hmm. So, even if she hadn't said anything when she walked in the bathroom, but she just went and pointed to the faucet, she'd have been communicating this is important to me.
Well, and I wonder, like, again, like, I'm going back to this idea of like, what is the message behind this? Like, what is the message behind the sigh? And for me in my head, like when I saw you going through that scenario, I was kind of wondering, I wonder if she feels alone. I wonder if
I think it's a feeling of this again. This is something that I'm going to have to come and do because it's important to me and it was missed. So it's the responsibility, I think.
It's actually interesting. You're talking about like once again, I'm gonna have to do this and be the one to take care of it. And there was a female content creator who made a video about like mental load cleaning, something like that. And this guy, he commented and he was talking about how he was like trying to do more and talking about how he was cleaning, doing something, and how like he was trying to do better, basically. Like I thought it was like a positive message talking about how he was trying to improve his relationship and everything. And in there, he talked about how he messed something up and his wife like criticized him, but like how he said it wasn't like complaining about it. He just brought it up. And all the comments back to this guy were absolutely trashing him. Like he was the worst person ever. And I showed it to my wife. I'm like, why are all these women trashing this guy? Like he's trying to do better. And they were like, it's because over and over and over, they're told that, okay, yeah, I'll do better. And then they let their partners down. And then that's trauma for them. That they keep getting told, yeah, I'm going to do better. But then like, look, this guy talks about how he let his wife down. And that's typical. It's just, you say you're going to do better and then you don't. And then you say you're going to do better and then you don't. And so all these women are trashing him because that's trauma they've lived with. And they think that it's just going to be a recurring cycle that this guy's talking about. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. In my eyes, I was like, hey, this guy's doing better. And yeah, he failed, but at least he was trying. So it was like interesting you're talking about like how she thinks about that situation versus how I didn't like think about that.
And that's one of the things that I'm talking about when I'm saying, to consider the experience that your partner's having. So when I talk about neurodivergence or pain or other difficulties, traumas that we've dealt with, no matter what words we use to explain what that experience was, no one else or that experience is for you. No other person can experience it the same way that you can. There are no words that put that actual experience on us of what they're going through. So there's a point where we have to believe them. And it goes both ways. To believe your spouse when they say, this feels like a betrayal. You've told me you're going to try harder. And then I see that you just mailed it in. And it feels like you cleaned the bathroom in a hurry. I'm so sorry. John, we did not mean that. I'm beating this dead horse. And the other side is, okay, but it's also like the third time in my life I've cleaned a bathroom, so I'm getting better. And to believe each other when we say those things, not as a defense, but as a, hey, let's try to understand each other's experience. Let's try to, because there's a lovely line in Bones. I know, I'm going to reference a really old TV show, but there's an episode where Bones and what's his name end up going to investigate a death at a BDSM ranch that people are doing pony play at. And I don't know why I'm telling you all of this. Our FBI agent ends up describing what he believes sex is. And sex to him was trying to get past our skin to have an experience together where it feels like we've transcended these bodies and we're having a higher experience. And I think when I talk about trying to understand one another's experience, it's making this conversation just as sacred. These conversations, hundreds of them that we're going to have, of this is what it feels like when I walk in and when you say, look, I did this, and I walk in and look and I'm like, you missed the parts that were very important to me. And both of those things are important. Thank you so much for trying. And I need you to consider these things that are also important to me. And for you to hear, for the person who's trying to do better, to hear, I see that you're doing better. This is the standard I'm hoping you're working towards. Which doesn't mean you'll never reach it, though we'll never reach perfection. As we work through these conversations and do it together, we do get closer, and we get closer to that, and maybe as close as we could ever get to that believing each other's experience is just to having each other's experience is to even believe that the other person's having a different experience than you.
Yeah. I know. I think that's powerful, and that's what I've gotten from my takeaway as well. It's one, at the end of the day, both parties have to care about each other and have to want to understand each other, and so it comes down to communicating. We talked about the communicating needs, and you're talking about not labeling and how to communicate that in a way that doesn't result in defensiveness, or at least as much. And so I think it's been really insightful to think about, okay, how do I communicate when I am unhappy in a way that it's going to be productive? And on the flip side, if my partner is communicating to me that they're unhappy, how do I respond to that in a way that will be more productive? And thinking about always from their perspective in addition to mine, and just realizing that at the end of the day, we both want what's best for us and the family and the household. At the end of the day, when it comes to the bathroom, we both want a clean bathroom, and we both want us to feel like we're not both overwhelmed and doing it all alone. And so we need to realize that we really have the same end goal. And even if we took different paths there, we communicate and talk about how do we get there and our expectations of getting there. So it's been really insightful for me to think about my communication style and taking feedback. And I hope it's also been helpful for maybe people that are in the opposite role, where they're usually the ones giving feedback. Unfortunately, I wish I was more in that role, but it's a learning process. I'm hoping to do better, but I hope it was also insightful for those parties as well. So I think it's been a really powerful episode on especially communication and talking about those needs and everything.
I think my favorite part, because this is where we usually talk about our takeaways, I think what I found myself kind of writing down is just like that wonderful reminder of like just to be able to be patient with learning, to really embody like this idea of patience and mercy and grace, like in this process of growth for our partner, to not expect like perfection right away, but all of those miscues that like Carla and John, you guys were talking about, those miscues are opportunities for them to be able to continue to be able to grow and to just be patient with that process. Like change doesn't happen overnight. Perfection doesn't, honestly, probably will never happen, but growth happens gradually, and to be able to recognize it and to be able to see it in our partner. And so I love that. Again, like Carla, you really hit home on like the need for patience in a relationship, and when we inevitably blow it, or at least maybe I'm speaking about myself.
Well, we all do.
Well, thank you very much, Carla, for your time. If you want to connect with Carla and work with her, visit her website at carlaeenberg.com. That's CarlaIengeborg.com. We'll also link it in the description. And then next time, Jess and I plan to review research insights and where we're trying to personally grow because of all these interviews. We'll also talk about the common issues we're seeing in my content as well as in his sessions. So wherever you're listening, please subscribe. Please leave a review, good, bad. We want to know the feedback. And thank you for listening.
Please take care of yourself and the people that you love.